Hey guys, what's going on? Seth here, retipster.com. Today I'm coming to you with a review of a course that I just got through. It's called the Ultimate Outdoor Billboard Boot Camp. It's kind of a mouthful. It's from a guy named Frank Rolfe. And the reason that I wanted to take the time to go through this course, I actually don't do a whole lot of course reviews like this anymore because they are extremely time consuming to really see everything a course has to offer and to put together a comprehensive, helpful, honest set of feedback about how good the course actually is. However, the reason I wanted to do this one is because for many, many years I've been really intrigued by this idea of making money from billboards. And when I say that, I mean owning land where I lease out a very small portion of that land to a billboard company. And then that company comes and constructs the billboard and they maintain it, they find the advertisers, they do everything. I just sit back and collect a very small portion of the ad revenue or just a flat lease amount from that company on an annual basis. So that was what I had in mind. And when I was trying to find information on how to do this, and I came across this course. And it was actually the only course of its kind that we were able to find. And maybe there's others out there I just don't know about, but this was pretty much it. So we reached out to them and they allowed us to take the course for free so that we could do this review. We also do have an affiliate link to this course if you want to check it out. I'm going to have that link beneath this video. And if you do happen to go through that link and sign up for this, I have a little extra bonus I can give you as well, in addition to the content of the course that you're not going to get unless you go through that affiliate link. And I'll have some more details about that near the end of this video. So with that all out of the way, let me just dive into this course and what I thought about it, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. And you can kind of decide for yourself if this is something you want to pursue. So first off, just going to give you a quick overview of what you get when you sign up for this course. So essentially, once you sign up, you get a Google Drive link where you can download 15 different video modules where the course creator, Frank Rolfe, is basically just standing in front of a whiteboard explaining pretty much everything you need to know about getting into this business. There's absolutely nothing fancy about how these videos were made, but just the information he shares in the videos were extremely helpful. More information than I've ever seen from any other source. So the videos were awesome. I thought they were really well done. He does a really good job explaining things. Each video ranges in length from about 20 to 90 minutes. And Frank, he talks at a relatively slower pace. So the nice thing about that is you can actually increase the speed on these videos to 2 times the regular speed and it still sounds totally fine. So you can actually get through these videos twice as fast as the actual length of them. So keep that in mind. And it also comes with a couple really big PDFs. One of them is a written version of all the course content. The other one is this manual with examples of leases, pictures, contracts, and things like that, which is actually astoundingly useful. And he explains in some of these videos why these leases are written the way that they are. I think it's module 3 where he sort of goes line by line through his standard lease and explains why every single word is in there. Every word matters. And if you were to just find some boilerplate lease somewhere, it probably would not have all of the relevant information that his lease does. Honestly, I thought his lease by itself was probably worth the cost of the entire course. And he explains why. He actually took years to develop this thing and really perfect it. There's also a handful of audio files that you can just listen to. And honestly, I didn't listen to all of them in their entirety, but from what I heard of them, it sort of sounded like a rehash of the stuff that's already in the videos and the PDF stuff. So if you just prefer to listen to it rather than sit in front of a screen and watching it or reading it, those audio files are there for you as well. So I don't know that the audio files are critical to understanding everything, but again, in all disclosure, I did not listen to the whole thing, so maybe I'm missing something. But just speaking for myself, I was hungry for this information, and I felt he kind of knocked it out of the park just in terms of explaining so many things that you really need to know about if you decide to get into this business. And for me, I actually found within the first 3 videos, he's actually talking about a different type of business than I thought I was going to be learning about when I started going through this course. So again, like I said, in my mind, I was looking for a course that would teach me how I can find the right properties to buy and then lease out to other billboard companies and just make revenue from that. That's not actually the business Frank is talking about here. He's talking about if you actually lease the land from other people and you construct the billboards and manage them and find the advertisers and deal with the property owners. So like he's actually talking about how to be the billboard company, not just owning the land and leasing it to a billboard company. Especially after taking the course, I realized this definitely isn't something I want to do, at least not the business model he's talking about, because I'm looking for passive income. And that's not at all what he's talking about here. He's talking about the active version of the business where you really build up the portfolio of billboards so that you can earn revenue from the advertising, or you can like sell off the billboards to another larger billboard company like Lamar or Viacom or CBS Outdoor or something like that. So even though it's not the business model that I had in mind, it was still like incredibly useful, very interesting information. I still went through all of it and found it pretty fascinating. And I did actually glean a lot of new insights for if I was looking to buy a property for the purpose of housing a billboard, again, owned and operated by somebody else. I'm just going to be the landowner. I learned a lot from this about, okay, what kinds of properties do I need to find and what kinds of things do I need to investigate before I move forward and actually buy a property for this purpose, if that's even going to work. I actually used this information myself in my home state because I came across a piece of land that was zoned commercial. Everything about it seemed to check out, and I almost bought it for that purpose, but I actually found, and this is another thing that Frank gets into in the course, there's a ton of stuff you need to understand about federal compliance, state compliance, even city compliance that needs to check out before you move forward with trying to put a billboard on a property. I actually found that in Michigan, at least with the company I was talking to, I didn't even realize this, but there's something called a cap and replace law in effect right now. You can put a new billboard in, but only if you remove another billboard somewhere else. So the total number of billboards cannot go any higher than it currently is, which again is not a deal killer. I mean, if you do have a location that's clearly better than another one that's out there, you could tear down one of the billboards and build a new one in its place, say if you were a big company like Lamar and you had a huge portfolio of billboards. But it also makes a state like Michigan a lot less attractive for this kind of business because you're limited in how many billboards you can put out there. And you can really only put one up if your location is like a lot better than another existing location somewhere else. And that's one of those details that, again, I had no idea about that until I started investigating it in my state. And there are some states out there, like I think it's Vermont and Hawaii and Maine and Alaska, that flat out don't allow billboards at all. So like you can't do it, period, in those states. And then in other states, like it's totally cool. You can put them up all over the place and the rules aren't even that stringent in terms of what you can do. So it's a really big deal to understand what you can and can't do in the areas where you're considering putting a billboard. And Frank goes into that at great length. He doesn't like do the work for you, but he points out very specifically what you need to be looking at and what questions you need to ask. I thought the first 3 video modules, and really all of them, were like insanely helpful. It's kind of like drinking from a fire hose, just in terms of getting lots of very useful, applicable information that you won't otherwise have unless you take a course like this. So just from that standpoint, I thought it was very, very useful. And something else I should show you while I've got you here on this video is what this course content actually looks like. So I'm going to flip the screen around and we'll dive into the computer and I'll show you exactly what you're going to get if you get this course, just so you can understand as well as possible without taking the entire thing what this course consists of. So let's check it out. I'll show you. Okay, so here you have it. So once you sign up for the course, this is the Google Drive folder that you get access to. And you can kind of see right here where it says modules. So this is where you can find all the different videos. So this was what I spent the bulk of my time going through. I watched every second of these things, thought they were very helpful. I'll click on one of these things just so you can get a quick look at how these are presented and what you can expect from that standpoint.
All right, so now you've gotten probably a large pile of ordinances in because you've gone and you've contacted every city that the highway goes through. Because again, we know wherever there's no city limits, we're back under the state's ordinance.
And just to what I was talking about earlier, so I'm actually going to turn this on 2x speed just to kind of speed it up, and you can see what I mean. It's all still totally understandable, and you can get through it twice as fast.
And it's the same for the entire state. But the individual cities, they have their own ordinances often. Now, they don't have to. There are some cities that just go by the state's ordinance. And let's talk about what that means for a minute. There are two kinds of cities. There are self-controlled and non-self-controlled cities. And what does that mean? What that means is, bear in mind, that the Department of Transportation is typically in charge of the Billboard program for every state. And the federal government has the Highway Beautification Act, which governs every state. So what it means is the state has a lot to lose in this concept. If they don't regulate the signs correctly, they could lose federal funding in the state. So the state then clamps down on the individual city and says, are you guys capable of managing a responsible billboard program in your city? If the city says, no, we're not. We don't have the men. We don't know how to do it. We're really tiny. We have only 3 employees. Then often that city will be called non-self-controlled. And what that means is they pretty much forego their billboard regulations back to the state. So in a non-self-controlled city, the city pretty much follows the state's guidelines. However, there's another kind of city. That kind of city is a city that says, hey, we've got inspectors, we've got a budget, we can enforce our own sign ordinance, and that becomes a self-controlled city. That means that the city is able to administer a billboard program that is in compliance enough with the state law that it will not get the state in trouble with the federal government when it comes to getting their highway funding by violating the Beautification Act. I know that sounds really complicated, but it kind of makes sense if you think about it. So basically, a self-controlled city, they can write their own ordinance, and it can be different than the state's regulations as long as it's tougher than the state. Remember how it works. You start the Beautification Act. No state is allowed to have billboards any easier than as allowed under the Beautification Act, which covers all the states.
So just to kind of give some context as to what he's talking about here in this video, he's talking about when you want to start contacting states and cities to figure out what they will and will not allow. And this is like one of the most critical parts of this whole process, is knowing what you can and can't do with a property and what kind of billboard you can have and all this stuff. So again, I actually found the first 3 videos to be immensely helpful. Once I got through the 3rd video, I kind of realized pretty quickly, okay, so this is not at all a passive business model. This is much more of the active approach where you pursue properties. You don't necessarily buy them, but you set up leases with the property owners. You construct the billboards, you pay for all that, you get the financing, you find the advertisers, you do all this stuff. So it can certainly be a very profitable money-making opportunity, but if you're looking for the passive approach, that's not exactly what he's explaining here. He's explaining the active approach. However, even through that, I think you can still glean a lot of insights of what it would take to go the passive route. Like, what kinds of properties would you have to buy? What kind of money can you expect to make from those kind of properties? Who would you call to find out more information? So I think it's important just to understand precisely what kind of business is being talked about here, just because I had one thing in mind and that's not exactly what it ended up being. And he may have actually explained this very well on the sales page. I just didn't read it, so I'm not blaming him for that. It's just something that I was thinking something different and it went down a different track. Still a very helpful track, just different than what I thought. Anyway, that's just a quick preview of one of the many videos. If we go back here, so the file library, you can see here we have a few different templates in terms of like letters and contracts and leases, different agreements, that kinds of stuff. These 2 things right here, this is the PDF, and this is a massive PDF. It's over 300 pages, tons of information in here, tons of pictures, lots of very, very helpful information here. And then over here, the Billboard Boot Camp Manual. I'm not sure why this is not downloading, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the downloaded version that I have. And here it is. So you can see lots of different diagrams, lots of different examples. He actually refers to this a lot in the videos, so you'll probably want to have this PDF pulled up on your computer so you can reference the things he's talking about in the videos as he goes through the material. But again, tons of very helpful stuff here. And if we go back here, so these are the audio files you can listen to. I think what this was, just based on what I heard of them, was like a pre-recorded teleseminar. I'm not sure when this thing was done, but it sounds like this was originally recorded for something else and then repurposed for this course, which is totally cool. There's still helpful information in there. I found myself getting most of the value from the videos after I had gone through that and then went back and listened to some of these audio files. It's kind of like, okay, yep, I already know that. I already know that. So anyway, that was just my experience. But if you're somebody who likes to just listen to audio, this might be helpful for you. So here's a quick preview of one of these clips.
Welcome to the first in a series of teleseminars on how to successfully become a player in the highly profitable outdoor advertising billboard business. This series is not meant as a replacement for my book, Big Bucks for Big Signs, but rather as a supplement to it. We will go over some of the key points of the book in greater detail, but you still need to buy the book for the many exhibits, including the lease forms, the ad flyers, etc.
So it sounds like this was originally sort of like a supplement to his book. And then we got the transcripts here too, if you'd rather just read everything he said. So that's available. And that's pretty much it. I mean, without showing you everything line by line and watching all the videos here with you, that's what the course is. I found myself taking just a ton of notes because there was just a lot of new information here that was very, very interesting, very useful, especially if I did actually want to start pursuing the active business model But even though I don't, like I still learned a ton of stuff in terms of if I'm ever trying to buy a property and I think in my mind, oh, look, a billboard could go there. I now know that, no, hold on. There's all kinds of stuff you need to investigate first before you just move forward with that assumption. And along those lines, I did want to let you know, using a lot of the information that Frank put here in this course. So again, he was not teaching this from the passive standpoint, but if you want to pursue it from the passive standpoint, I put together a little summary PDF for you that basically just outlines a number of different things at both the federal and state and city level that you're going to want to investigate before you buy any property thinking that you can use it for a billboard. And the hard thing about this is that the federal levels, so this is what applies to every state. This is like the absolute bare minimum of what you can and can't do with a billboard. But that's usually not the end of the story. Usually there's an additional layer of state levels, which if anything is going to be more strict than the federal laws. And then even beyond that, once you get into a city, there's going to be even another potential layer of rules you have to abide by. So because of that, no matter where you think you're going to be able to put a billboard, there's always going to be more homework that you have to do to make sure you understand what the rules are. So what I did is I put together this PDF right here that just outlines what those rules are. Again, this is based on what Frank has here in his course. I just summarized it and condensed it and said, hey, boom, look at these things. So it's a little bit easier, a little bit more turnkey for you if you ever do decide to go that way. And you can get this thing for free. It's not going to cost you anything extra. All you have to do is sign up for his course through our affiliate link. I'm going to have all that information about what you have to do to get this free PDF beneath this video. It's really simple. And in terms of things about this course that I either didn't necessarily love or I thought could be improved, maybe this is because I'm also a course creator and I'm kind of a perfectionist with this stuff, but I thought it would have been helpful if this had been hosted on some kind of like content delivery platform, like a website I can go to and the videos are just there and the content is written out and bookmarked and I can search for stuff. And it wasn't that way. It's just kind of in this Google Drive folder, which it still totally works. I don't mean to imply that it's broken, but it seemed like there might have been a better way to deliver the content to people. Definitely not a deal breaker. The course is still great, but that's pretty much it. So again, if you want to get into the billboard business, or even if you're just curious about like, how does this work? Like, do I have what it takes to do this? Is this something that maybe I could succeed at? I think you're going to get most of those questions answered by going through a course like this. So again, our affiliate link, retipster.com/BBU. It's also going to be beneath this video if you want to check that out. If you do want to get that extra little bonus. And if this is totally not of interest to you, then obviously you don't need to do it. But I hope you found this video somewhat interesting anyway. And again, I don't know of any other course out there like this. I don't know if it's because this industry is smaller or if it's because the people in the industry don't want to share their secrets or what it is, but I just found it really hard to find this information anywhere else. So if you want a good sort of all-encompassing set of education about this kind of stuff, I think this is a pretty good solution to that. So if you do want to see a few more insights about what I thought about this whole course and other considerations in the industry, I also put together a very in-depth blog post reviewing all the same stuff. Some of it's going to be repeat from this video and some of it's going to be new stuff that I didn't mention here. So I'm also going to link to that blog post beneath this video as well, and feel free to check that out. Thanks again for watching. Talk to you next time.